Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. So last week I did a pest video and I saw that there were a lot of comments really wanting me to focus more on gastropods, so slugs and snails. And so this is how to basically prevent losing your garden to slugs and snails, all of the tips that I think work really well. And the good news is that there is a lot that you can do. It's probably the most boring tip, but the one tip that always works is just looking through plants, see if there's any slugs and just picking them off. Now there's a good time of day of doing this, which is on a warm night after the sun has gone. You come out with a torch and you just pick off any of the slugs that you see and then relocate them. Now you might have a night shift, which means that you might be at work when you should be going out and checking slugs at night. So a way around it is by creating the hiding spots that slugs like to use during the day. So what you do is you go around and, especially up against the sides of a raised bed, you can place a plank in like that, or just loosely kind of place it gently on top of the grass or your footpath. And then when you get back from your night shift, you can just quickly go via the garden, turn it over, and there'll be loads of slugs underneath that you can pick off. This next method, it isn't bulletproof, but I feel it does help. And it's about finding all of those little things that help, and they add up to creating quite a nice slug-free garden. So that's by creating barriers. A lot of people swear by using eggshells. The issue that I find with eggshells is that when you have a lot of rain, it just displaces them and doesn't really work. A similar idea is with using brambles. So these are spiky sticks that you can go around your plant and you can create just a little bit of a physical barrier around. The nice thing about this is that it is free, it is compostable, it is reusable, and you can just create a nice little protective structure. I would double this up at least, but it's something that does serve a purpose and it's quite fun to do. One of the easiest ways of being able to mitigate slug and snail damage is by growing plants onto kind of almost like semi-maturity in pots, in modules out of the way of slugs here in a polytunnel before you then transplant them. This is Malva spinach, and I'm doing a very similar thing here with, this is Savoy winter cabbage, which I can also protect a lot better from cabbage white butterflies because I don't like to net my brassicas. And so yeah, I'll just grow them onto kind of semi-maturity before planting out, because if they do get eaten by slugs, they're not going to destroy the whole plant like they would if they were direct sown and you'd lose them overnight. So I'm not so keen on eggshells, but I do want to give an alternative type of shell. So in here we've got oyster shells, which we've crushed up, and these maintain really sharp edges and they last much longer than eggshells. And also when it rains, they don't get displaced because they're nice and heavy. And so yeah, you can get these, pick them up for free from your local fishmonger, smash them up. We've used it for mulch here around this fig, but you can also make pathways in between beds like this to keep the pathways slug free, so they're not going to be traveling between beds. And you can, yeah, just get a bunch of different type of seashells. You can crush them all up. They break down, they will release a little bit of calcium, but they last and are much better than eggshells. So usually one of the kind of plant groups in the garden that struggles the most with slugs are going to be leafy greens like your salads and a lot of brassicas. Now I've visited Jack first and I loved his idea of creating a moat. So you use kind of any table and you need some kind of container that doesn't leak any water. So it could be an old mug or some jars, a takeaway box or a bowl, and the idea is that each leg gets put into this. You make sure that the table leg isn't touching any of the sides, and then you fill it up with a very salty, like saltwater solution up to the top. So the idea is that if slugs come up, they're going to enter the salt and they really don't like that. And so you're actually creating a completely slug-free growing zone on top of the table where you can then put in pots or containers and grow salads slug-free. Brilliant. Just like I always make sure to protect my hard work in the garden from pests, I also make sure that I protect my online work from hackers and viruses. When it comes to anything digital and online, It's Surfshark VPN, which is the ultimate solution for providing all of the protection that I need from the ever-growing threats that are out there in the digital world. So I like to fortify my garden by attracting as many beneficial insects as possible to act as this kind of like biological shield to protect my crops from pests. And Surfshark VPN creates an impenetrable shield protecting my online presence, safeguarding it from hackers and unauthorized intruders. With Surfshark's virtual private network technology, my data is encrypted and protected from prying eyes. So this means, if I'm doing any emails or dealing with online banking, that is nice and secure, which is exactly what I want it to be. If you're lucky enough to live in a climate where slugs and snails aren't an issue, I can actually join you using Surfshark's VPN technology. I can change my IP address location, which means that I can watch shows that I can't see here in the UK, but I might really want to watch, but they're protected geographically. So it means that I can enjoy things that you guys get to enjoy on the other side of the world. And being a VPN, I can virtually travel to any country. So there might be something in Australia that I want to watch one week, and then the next week there might be something in the US or in Canada. And so having the flexibility to do that is very nice. Surfshark invests in cutting-edge technology to make sure that I'm protected from online threats. A really important threat to protect yourselves against in the digital world is identity theft, and so Surfshark VPN is a fantastic guardian for that. And with Surfshark you can be rest assured that you've got the best protection against these digital threats. Surfshark offers a no-risk obligation, which means you can try it out and feel safe for 30 days with a money-back guarantee. But the good news is I have a link that gives you 3 free months of Surfshark that you can use today. So use the link in the video description to get your exclusive code, and thank you so much to Surfshark for supporting this channel. One of the most important things for creating a pest-free garden that also applies to slugs is the idea of polyculture, especially using flowers to attract a wide diversity of insect life in different habitats in and around your garden. We've got some beautiful calendula behind me, which is amazing for beneficial insects. There are many insects out there that actually naturally target slugs. In fact, I've just found out that slugs are a major food source for ground beetles and fireflies. I mean, who would have known that? And so just by making sure that you create diversity of habitat zones, maybe creating a little wildlife pond, different types of pathways, different types of flowers, you're naturally going to bring in a plethora of different insects. And so you're going to be bringing in a plethora of different small things that are also going to be working at controlling slug populations. Now, if things get a little bit out of hand, I would recommend using something like nematode. So these are nematodes, tiny little things that target slugs. And it is a complete biological, natural method of dealing with slugs for around 6 to 8 weeks. So there might be a time of year where you get the most slug pressure, especially during seedling stage or when things start to cool. You apply this little packet here will cover 100 square meters. This is kind of my last resort, but I do recommend it, and so many gardeners swear by it. It really does work. There are also lots of larger predators that go for slugs. For example, different birds and frogs. And so what you do naturally by trying to encourage as much insect life within the garden, if you think about the food chain, if there's lots of food for then these smaller mammals, they're also going to come into your garden and help with your natural slug control. So if you just focus on the small things, the big things look after themselves. Some of you might have thought, hey, what about hedgehogs? But there are certain parasites within slugs that can make hedgehogs very ill or die. It's quite a big thing now, and so that's why in the last few years I've really not mentioned hedgehogs as a natural way of controlling pests, because slugs aren't the best thing for hedgehogs to eat. Hedgehogs are very welcome, I don't mind them eating earthworms, but we should definitely move away from thinking that hedgehogs are a solid plan for reducing our slug populations. Now, you can always make a slug pub. The main thing to understand about this is apparently the smell of beer can attract slugs from up to 100 meters away. So this only works if you have a larger garden or a larger area. To do it outside of your garden, because I kind of see it as a way of like drawing the slugs out away from the garden towards the beer. So what you do, you just get some kind of cheapy beer and dig a bit of a hole. I'm literally just on the other side of the garden, so that's what's behind this fence. You make a little hole, and then I'm going to fill it just with some kind of lager, like that. And then with some of the offcuts, once that's overcoming, you kind of want to make it so it's reachable and the slugs don't get put off by the sharp edge of the plastic, in a little stick for any insects if they need to climb out. Place a large rock over the top, and then finally, a plank will go over the top just to protect it from any rain. But I'm going to fill up the beer to the top just so the slugs will come along, drown their sorrows, and it's not going to get diluted by any rainwater. One of the most important things for reducing slug damage in your garden is about timing watering well. So the worst time to water if you're suffering from a lot of slug damage is late afternoon into early evening. Even though that's the most efficient time to water, it is a time when you've got all of that moisture and the slugs absolutely love it. And so what you want to do instead is to water your garden kind of more in the morning. And that means that you have kind of midday and then into the afternoon for all of that moisture to seep down and kind of disappear off the surface, and it's going to be far less appealing for the slugs. Another nice way to avoid losing a lot of your crops to slugs is by making a hotbed where you can grow things at a season. You can start off your salads in February outside, and that's when slugs aren't really active at all. Plus, it's a little bit of a barrier and obstacle for them to get in, especially with the lights on top of the hotbed. And so if you want to find out more about hotbeds, watch this video here, because they're pretty damn incredible. And thank you to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Make sure you use the deal down below in my description.